Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have the first live stream in the world that we've done with the G&T Sessions. This is a podcast about growth technology with gifted and talented people. So great to have you all here. And in terms of guests, we've already had 60 episodes of the podcast already. It's been fantastic, some amazing guests. And today we have another amazing guest join us live from Sydney, Australia. It's Mr. Shailendra Kumar, and let's bring him onto the show. Hi, Shailendra. How are you?
Very good. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Very, very good. Very, very good. So we're welcome, and I think it's quite late over there, isn't it? What time is it in Sydney at the moment?
It's 9 p.m.
See, 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, but this is one way, I suppose, to escape from the quiet house that you were living in.
I've told everyone that I'm having a very important session with Andrew, so please be quiet.
So welcome to the show. Welcome to the live stream. This has been as I said a bit on the intro, it's the first time we've actually run a live stream. And I think I was just going to say thank you for triggering me to do this live stream, because I think you're a bit of a live stream expert compared to me. I think you've done a few before, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And by the way, it is going live on all my channels as well. So it is going live in LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So to my audience, you also get to see us live as well. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic! It looks like it's working all right actually on the YouTube channel as well. So
yes, it's going everywhere. So that's good.
So the technology is working. That's good. So it's always a relief when it all works. It's kind of like when you take live broadcasts into your own hands, and you actually start having to configure it, minutes before we actually go live. It's always a bit of a character building exercise. So so for people that don't obviously know yourself, I mean, one of the first questions I was going to say was about, what are you working on these days? What's going on in Shailendra's world, apart from you being sitting on an island where there's very nice beaches and very nice weather.
And the good thing is that there is zero coronavirus patients,
well done.
Which is very, very good. A great place to be at the moment. So thank you to the government and the people around who've been following all the protocols that have been given to them, which is great.
Yeah, so, have you been out in Sydney for quite a while then? Have you been based there for a few years or?
Yeah, I've been living in Sydney for now 15 years. I came to Sydney in 2005, which was a few years ago. Yeah. And
would you say that it's probably the best place you've lived? I mean, it sounds like you obviously must like it a little bit, given you been there 15 years.
You want the secret out? It is one of the best places to live, one of the best. But the best place, and I used to say this to a lot of people, that I'll die in Brussels. I lived in Brussels for a while, and I think I can't get over it even after 20 years.
Oh, so you like the moules and the frites and the strong beer?
Yeah, I'm a beer person, so it's good.
Oh, really? Well, you got some beers down there. You got what's it called? Victoria Bitter and Foster's.
Foster's, Carlton. And then you've got 150 Lashes, my favorite. So yeah, it's quite good.
You see, you can't come on the G&T Sessions live stream and talk about beer. You've got to talk about gin. So in terms of what you were saying, you obviously you're down in Sydney. So what occupies your time? Obviously because people now, I think, in this brave new world, people have probably their day jobs, and then they have their side gigs. So I suppose maybe could you give the audience a bit of an idea of what's going on in your world? What's orbiting the Shailendra household?
Okay. So my current role, if I just look at that, so my current role is the chief evangelist at SAP, which entailed 3 pillars once upon a time when I started. And why I say once upon a time, I'll just clarify that. I had the first pillar, which was public speaking. So I would talk to anyone between, go to a stage, anyone between 200 to 2,000 people. and I'll talk to them. And I think 2017, 2018, 2019, I had a good run. I had around about 150, 170 shows. And almost I was traveling almost every next week. But then COVID hit, so that stopped. And when that stopped, that gave me an opportunity to think outside of the box. And I started doing live shows, and that's turned it around. That's what turned it around. And I was doing around about 2 live shows a week. So I
Okay.
was doing one on Thursday and one on Tuesday. The Tuesday one is called Artificial Intelligence Startup Series, and the Thursday one is more on data science. So we get people with the data science background. So it's a balance of AI and data science that works
Okay.
during the week, and that takes a lot of time because organizing, and you would imagine as you're doing it for the first time, organizing it, bringing it to bear is a whole new game.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to say thank you for triggering me to do it, because I think I'm pleased I'm here, because it's when you do it actually, and then you get there, it's pretty cool. So I mean, you got me in this wanderlust now. I'm going to be doing live shows every day next. No, sorry. live shows, more live shows to come. So I mean, I suppose you said 2 things there. You said obviously there's this apparently this company called SAP. Systems and Applications and Products in Data Processing, as it was called, SAP AG. When I joined SAP, quite strangely, when we met originally, Shailendra and myself, it was spooky actually how our lives have been in parallel universes. And I remember writing my first ABAP program in 1989, which is now, what is that, 30 years ago? 32 years ago? That makes me about 30, 35 in years old, obviously. But
well, actually, we should talk about this a bit more. You said the parallel world we've been living, right? And to the audience, guys, I met Andrew last week, same time, accidentally on a new software called Lunch Club. And someone introduced me to Lunch Club, and thanks to Saurabh Moody for doing it. Saurabh, you get the credit for that. You introduced me to Lunch Club. It was lying in my inbox, and I didn't touch it. And then one day I just said, well, Saurabh has invited me to something. I must do something about it. So I clicked it and I went there. And that was on a Thursday, and I just did the preferences and everything. And sorry, we are promoting Lunch Club at the moment. So Lunch Club, if you're hearing this, we're doing this for you.
Yes, exactly.
So I got in. There's something called instant chat on instant connect on Lunch Club, and I started getting these messages. So, are you available? You want to do a session? I said yes. I kept on doing that, and I did around about 13 that night. And
oh, did you? 13?
Yeah, I did. And you were, I think, number 4, number 5. So I met Andrew, and then we started talking. And he asked me, where do you work? And I said, SAP. He said, I worked in SAP 30 years ago. I said, good. And then I started looking at his LinkedIn profile. And I figured out that he's done exactly what I've done, but at a different point in time. So he worked for SAP. I worked for SAP. He's worked for a retailer in UK, Tesco. I worked for Woolies and Coles. So basically we were doing similar kind of stuff with similar industries at a different point in time. So it was quite interesting, and the kind of discussion we had that night for 15 minutes was great, and it was a great conversation.
Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you said about the mirroring, because also the third thing I would say to you is, so we've worked in obviously a tech company, SAP, the legendary SAP Hasso kind of place, and but also we've obviously worked in retail. So I worked in Woolworths in the UK, when in the 80s, right?
In
and
Australia.
you worked in Australia, and then obviously, so the funny thing is, then obviously I joined, after I left SAP, I joined Tesco, and obviously a lot of people then got headhunted in the 2000s from the UK to do the retransformation down at Coles. Now so it's a bit like the retail mafia, expands globally. So there's a lot of people actually still working Coles that work with me in Tesco, and then obviously the third thing I was going to say was data. Yeah, so I've spent 30 years working in data, which is now called sexy things like AI and machine learning, or statistics, basically. Yeah, which is what I was doing at GE before I joined Tesco. I was at GE, and I was working on Six Sigma, right, which is applying data and analytics and algorithms to work out how you're performing with the business. And now that's called machine learning and AI and everything like that. All these sexy terms. So it is a bit of a kind of a surreal. It was a surreal meeting. And it's amazing how these those three things together as well. Actually, working for tech companies, because I now work for a few different tech companies myself, and in Silicon Valley, and have been in Silicon Valley a couple of times. And it's amazing how the richness of that experience gives you a really interesting perspective on things. Because if you've been in a line role in an actual business like you have as well, and then you go into a tech company, you look at the actual interaction with customers and things like that in a different way, because you've got some really good stories to share, and that's what business people want to talk about.
Sure. So someone has just pinged on LinkedIn and said, "Is there a set agenda, or are you just having a chat?" Which I really like, because I love to have these chats, and it's easy. So Peter Menahem, yes, we've got an agenda, and we're going to share some insights as well. It's not just a two-way chat. Don't worry about it.
We're just going to drink gin and tonic for the next hour and a half. What are you about? Oh, you're going to drink. You're going to drink beer.
Yeah, I'm going to drink beer.
So what you? I suppose. Yeah, quick question. So I suppose with your shows that you're doing on a weekly basis, what are you seeing are the hot topics these days, and what? Because I mean, machine learning, AI, it's kind of like it's out there, but it's not a new. It's like a new top line brand name, but it's actually just some of the stuff that's been out there for decades, isn't it? So, any thoughts on that?
Yep. So, as I said, I run these shows. The brand is the Shelly Show, and on the Shelly Show, we try and unpack or peel the onion from what AI is, what the data science is, what machine learning is. The problem which I see is that people don't see the difference between it's just rebranding the same thing. So I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was telling them that there is a difference between predictive analytics to what is machine learning to what is AI. And people usually mistakenly say that machine learning is what machine learning is for them is not machine learning actually. So let me try and talk about that as well. So if you think about in good old days, what we used to call analytics, or we used to call predictive analytics, had the core of it was a statistical model. So you would run a statistical model and predict something. So let's take an example. We may predict likelihood for a customer to buy nappies, for example.
Oh, the beer and nappies Walmart example.
And the beer and nappy story, right? And for people who don't know the beer and nappy story, I will cover that, because for people with gray hair like me would know, but not the new generation, which is very interesting. So the statistical modeling was there, and you would predict people who are likely to buy nappies. What happens over a period of time is that because the customer behavior changes, and for example, in this case, the children will outgrow themselves, and so there will be no nappies required, the model will get out of whack. So you will need the model to be recalibrated or refreshed so that you can you're still doing the same. You're still able to accurately predict.
Yes, you're refreshing.
You recalibrate. The word is recalibrate. You recalibrate the model. Now, when you're recalibrating the model, you will have to call the consultant or the data scientist or the person who can actually tweak the model again. And that's part of the predictive analytics story. The next step, so that is predictive analytics, statistical model, which is manually built and then recalibrated as we go forward. But the term machine learning, so a lot of people mistakenly take statistical modeling as machine learning. Well, actually, statistical modeling is one component of machine learning, but it becomes machine learning when the model recalibrates itself, because the human intervention there, when you recalibrate the model, if that goes away and the model recalibrates itself when the data is changing, the base data is changing and the model recalibrates itself, that becomes machine learning. So there are a lot of terms for that, self-learning models, or so this is what is machine learning. So even statistical modeling, some people think neural networks is quite new. We used to do neural networks 30 years ago. So
Yeah.
nothing is new. It's just that the power of machine has become quite strong, and it can return results very, very quickly, as it used to be once upon a time. And then that machine learning component is the brain of artificial intelligence. It needs, and artificial intelligence is the whole package, which includes bringing in data, videos, audios, text, IoT data, bring that into the brain, which is machine learning, and that then takes a decision and then goes back and responds back. And that is AI. So there are three levels of it, and you do one by one, and all three of those are really, really important if you're trying to build what is called AI. And people get mistaken. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was telling them that a lot of people build a statistical model, and because AI is something very flashy these days, they say, I built an AI model. Well, actually, no, there's nothing called AI model. What you're building is called is a statistical model, which is going to feed the machine learning, or is the brain for AI, as you call it. So yeah, so there are a lot of those discussions, and then apart from that, a lot of people talk about what kind of use cases they're solving using machine learning and using predictive or statistical modeling. So that is also very much there on the shows, and people really, really learn from that. A lot of people actually ask questions. It's a very interactive session. We ask people to ask questions to us, and that's good as well. And so also, if you've got a question, please put that in the comment section, and I'll take that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that was a really good explanation, because what you said is it's kind of three evolutions. It's kind of like people, and the language actually confuses, I think, some people about where they are on their maturity curve. Is that what you're seeing as well? It sounds like.
Yeah. Yep. That's also there, the maturity curve. But what I heard yesterday was with someone who said, because AI is quite it's on the top of the hype curve, people use that term to throw around, and even if they're not doing that. Well, I'll tell you another story. What happened once upon a time was, I was working for a large corporate. I won't name them. Well, everyone knows where I've worked, but this was a large corporate, and we were looking at building a data science hub. And I was very interested in getting that data science hub. So I asked the leadership that we should build one, and we should do that in India, or we should do that in possibly Philippines or Indonesia, or wherever. So they mandated another lady in the UK to say, well, you look at Shelley's asking for this data science hub, build it for him. So she called me up and she said, oh, Shelley, you're building a data science hub. I said, where are you building it? So we're going to build a few. I said, okay. I am in Sydney. Which one is for me? She said, we'll build one in Melbourne. I said, okay, in Melbourne. That's great. So I said, that is fine, but where are you getting the people from? Because we don't have many data scientists. No, there are lots of data scientists. I said, okay. So what do we do? So I said, and she challenged me. She said, go to LinkedIn and type data science Australia. And actually, what it returns is 200,000 data scientists in Australia.
Wow.
And I was stumped, because the population of Australia is 20 million, 24 million now. So if out of 24 million people, 200,000 people are data scientists, that's quite an achievement. So I said, I don't think so, because that was some time ago. There are only 10 data scientists in Australia that I am aware of, and I can count them all. I don't know where you're getting these 200,000 from. And then I started looking at their names and what they do, and then I figured out that everyone who was writing some code and creating some data, writing some data SQL, changed their titles to data scientists. It was very, very easy, and they all became data scientists overnight.
Yeah, but that's what happens in the technology market. It's a bit like DevOps, isn't it? Remember, are you an ops guy or are you a developer? Oh, no, I'm a DevOps guy. And then suddenly, they're kind of like, it's a bit like Prince, like the famous pop star, the artist formerly known as. No, but I suppose that's the thing, is it's a hot space, isn't it? I mean, the thing I find quite amusing is that the understanding now of data to run the business is now, obviously, central, and this kind of, the chief data officer role, the chief analytics officer role, the chief digital officer role. But what I find incredible is, when I was at GE, there's this role called CIO, chief information officer, and yet what seems to happen now is that job seems to have been chopped up into different roles, which seems to have kind of, I don't know, has it fragmented, or is it real? Should it have happened like that? But really, when I was in GE, the guy who was the right hand man of the CEO from a technology point of view was the CIO role. But that seems to be kind of it's evolved, and it's got chopped up. I don't know, any view on that, why that's happened?
So I'll tell you, the CIO's job today, in today's world, is, as one of my bosses said, and I mentioned that, is to keep the lights on the computer. That's his job.
Right.
Right. There is a differentiation between what a chief information officer needs to do, what a chief data officer needs to do, and what a chief analytics officer needs to do. The problem at the moment is that people are actually missing that aspect as well, because a chief data officer's job is to make sure that the data flow is correctly, data is reaching from one point to the other, the data is accurate, the fields are correctly mapped, the data that is coming in is correctly stored, and so forth. That's chief data officer. He's possibly an IT person. And then you've got the chief analytics officer, whose job is to actually create value out of the data that the chief data officer is collecting and storing. Now, another problem is, and I had that argument with one of the large survey companies, I'll call them. Those survey companies who put those quadrants. And
no, surely not. I don't know who they are.
No,
they may have a wave. Like if you're in Sydney, you've got to have a wave.
Yeah, you've got a wave. Yeah. So I had a chat with this guy, and he said, what you're saying, Shailendra, for a chief analytics officer is the job of a chief data officer. I said, how is it possible? How do you expect a guy who's done IT to be able to understand business and also understand statistics? It's not possible. You're asking for a superhuman. Someone who's not studied statistics. Oh, you may. So okay, sorry. You don't ask for a superhuman. You're asking for someone who's brilliant. You may have a few. You may have 4 or 5 of those, but you won't have in mass every chief data officer being able to understand the business, creating value out of data, also doing also doing statistical modeling and understanding it and making sense out of it for the business.
So what you're saying is it's kind of, as the maturity of the technology has happened, it has to create this specialization so you can go deep in each of these areas. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. So chief analytics officer is a business person. He understands business. He's not part of IT. He's part of business, who understands business, logic. Why is that being done? To create
the business rules. The business rules. Yeah. Yeah.
The business rules and the statistical understanding of the entire business. Whereas chief data officer's job is to make sure that he's an IT person who understands data, who understands the correctness in data, who will talk about how the data will be stored, how effectively it will be stored, how efficiently it will be accessed, and all that stuff.
It's like that's like the data management elements. Then it's like getting data from A to B, or from the source to the actual analytics report or whatever, or the output. Yeah. Okay.
Now, again, some people think, and also the reporting aspect. So if there's reporting happening, if there is slice and dicing happening, it's not making sense of the report, but creating that report is chief data officer. Whereas chief analytics officer is making sense of that report and helping business to take the decision to make the next $1 billion. And that's where there is a difference, and that's where people are not getting that point of view. And I think that is very, very important. On the other aspect of it, if you look at the CMO, because the chief marketing officer is driving a lot of marketing agenda and sitting on a lot of activities that are happening as a result of what chief analytics officer does. A lot of that now is sitting in that part of the business as well. So if you have chief data officer and a CDO and a CIO sitting in IT, you've got the CMO and the CAO sitting in the business trying to make sense out of it and executing it for you.
But it's interesting you said that the kind of, I mean, in the structures I've worked in the organization, the CIO's role has been promoted to a more senior position. Yeah. It's more like a board role rather than reporting to the CFO. That's what I've seen the evolution in the last couple of decades, which you've probably seen as well, which is good. And the right thing to do, because obviously there's a lot more critical services which are actually part of the operating model that need to be always on. Yeah, you need to, if you especially with these platform businesses, that is the business. If the platform goes down, you're out of business. The cash tills stop ringing. Ding ding ding. We're in trouble.
And that's where you need the CIO to be there all the time, and that's what CIO is doing. So I'll tell you a very interesting story. My CIO, one of my ex-CIOs who worked with me, he told me clearly, I'm not responsible for what you do with your platform, how you use it, what you do with it. I'm not responsible. The only thing I'll make sure is that every day when you come in, your team comes in, the lights are on. And exactly that. And I was fine with that. Not many people will be fine with that, but I was absolutely fine with that because I knew he's not dealing with me on day-to-day basis. He's not understanding what I'm trying to do. So unless, if I make him responsible for what I'm doing, then that's wrong. And so it is very important.
So what we're saying is though that rather than the data and the analytics roles working for the CIO, what you're saying is that there's been a movement away from that because the CIO is looking at keeping the lights on, but then the CDO role is then looking at the data movement or the data, making data available to the business. Is that how you describe it? Yep. And why is that not and you mentioned also that was an IT role. Why do you say that?
Because it is an IT role, because he's making sure he understands the way the data is structured, the ways data is created, the way it is coming from the till, and the CDO is also in other words, if there are changes to the data structure, for example, you're bringing in a new system, device, for example. So now let's make it this way. So you were always transacting, and
obviously we wouldn't say put in Oracle. We'd say obviously put in something else.
No, I'm not going there. I'm talking about devices. So, for example, if we were always offline, now suddenly you've gone mobile, and when you're getting mobile, you're actually getting some information from the mobile system as well. So, who's going to make that decision in the end, or tick the box saying, I want customer information wherein I want these fields done that way, and they would go and align somewhere. What if someone makes a change to that? That will be dramatic. So CDO owns that. He is the chief data officer, not the chief customer officer, but he owns the customer data. He owns the transactional information. He owns that. He's responsible for making sure that they don't dramatically. What if your name is not captured properly? What if the email not captured properly.
So like master data and analytics and
Master data
transaction.
management, all of that is CDO's role. That already is too much for him. So that is an IT job. You need to understand the nitty-gritties of how data is coming in, how secured the data is. That's all sitting with him. Whereas the analytics guy is sitting in business. And I'll tell you, there's a research that we did 5-6 years ago. Organizations who've actually moved the needle and done a great job have got a CAO role separated out of CDO. All those people who were having the CDO and a CA role at the same place are still struggling because there is a differentiation in their role, and the background that you want, the talent that you're looking for to do a CDO job is not the same as the CAO job.
Yeah, I mean, it's also I think my observation, it's all about capability building, because depending on the size of the business and the reach of the business, whether how many business units you've got, how many, how's it structured, because as you can see the evolution from a CIO to CDO, but then I suppose to support the functional heads, the CFO, to support the CMO, maybe the chief sales officer or chief revenue officer in a large business. That's where I presume the chief analytics officer then supports that kind of interface. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting. So in terms of so I was asking you sorry, you another question coming in.
Yep.
Ooh.
No. What I was saying was that there are lots of people watching on LinkedIn. So guys, if you've got a question, put in there. I will read the question. The other thing is, please like and share this video so more and more people can learn from it. So I haven't said that so far. This is the first time after 30 minutes that I've said that. Otherwise, I start with that statement. But anyways.
We just lost it. We lost in our live stream. You see. So, so I was going to ask you actually. You said when you started that you were a chief evangelist. What does that mean? What does that mean these days? Because it's like CEO, chief evangelist officer.
So I'll also define that because I think there's a lot of confusion around that as well. So chief evangelist is the job of the chief evangelist, as one of my ex-bosses said, was you are opening the doors and you are the tip of the arrow that's going to hit. So you're creating that need for the person at the very high level when you're talking to 200, 300 people or 400 people or whatever, 50 people, and telling them this is what they need. You're sowing the seed for that discussion that may happen in 6 months' time or a year's time. So that's what you're doing. You're trying to be thought provoking and disruptive. You're kind of trying to like a lightning strike kind of thing. Absolutely. So what you're doing is you're opening. You're giving them new ideas. You're making sure that these guys, these C-level guys who are sitting in that room trying to understand, they get new ideas. They understand what is the art of possibility. What I'm not doing in my business that will make a difference. Which may go nowhere, which may be just something that they've taken home and it's food for thought, and that's it. Which may turn around in my next session when I'm talking to them. But what happens a lot of time is that after that discussion, those guys will then say, can you come in and have a chat with my business? So then it becomes a full-fledged workshop. So there are two ways, right? When you do a sale call, you will go and ask for a workshop. Can I get someone to do workshop with you? In my case, it's the other way around. When I create that need, when I sow that seed, they want to know more. And when they want to know more, they would ask me to come and do the workshop with them. And they will make their team available to do that workshop, and which is absolutely phenomenal. I've had so many workshops, I've spent days where I would go in the morning and come back in the evening talking to their business, and then business will say, oh, wait a minute, talk to our IT because I think they've got an issue. Talk to this guy. And you're opening these doors. You're making sure that these guys understand what they're not doing so far. So from doing a show where you're talking about and sowing the seed to create that little sapling, in other words, which is then now going to become a big tree when the sales guys come in, and it simplifies the sales process so easily. If you have the right evangelist, the sales process is so simple. It's smooth because you've created the need, you've sown the seed. The CEO, the CTO, the CIO, the CDO, the CAO all understand what they're looking for. Then it is very, very simple. I do innovation days wherein I will sit down with the entire C-level suite to workshop with them what they should be doing and what they are doing, what they're not doing, what the world is doing. I've heard this a lot of time. A lot of events talk about, Shailendra is going to talk about the trends in what trends? I'm not going to talk about any trend. Trends are only talked by people who've got no content. They've got a graph and they show, last year data-driven sales were $10 million. Now it become $20 million. See how the incremental is. It's incremental because they don't have any content to talk about. They don't have a use case. They don't have a story to tell. I don't do that. I have no graph on my. I used to do graphs when I was at retail where I had to justify, I've made that much of money.
Do you like for like performance?
Not anymore because you don't need it. If you're talking about something that is needle moving, which is changing the lives of people, you have that story. You tell that story. If that story is impactful, people will ask you to help you deliver that. And that's the job of an evangelist. The problem is that we don't, everyone is now evangelists. So that's the other problem that we've seen.
But do you evangelize about certain topics, or do you evangelize about transforming the business completely? I mean, is there a boundary on it, or is it targeted?
There is a thread. The thread is the data.
Right.
And there is no boundary. So the data is the thread. And with my background, I come because I've done it so many times with so many industries. When I come in and I have a chat with people, I try to look at business problems. So there are two questions I always ask. And for the audience, guys, if you're watching me and if you're trying to do something with data, don't go and talk about statistical model or a report or an analysis. Don't talk about that. There are two things which are most important for the business. First, what is the most important business pain, the biggest business pain that is keeping them awake at night? Ask them to write it on whiteboard in plain English. First thing, write the business problem that's keeping them awake in plain English first. Second, quantify it for me. Put a dollar value. If I solve that problem tomorrow morning, how much are you willing to pay? Now, when I ask these two questions, it does two things. No, I'm not asking you for that money.
It doesn't necessarily need to be how much you're going to pay. It's like, what is the size of the prize? It's not what the size of the prize is.
The reason I ask it the way I'm asking it is because in their mind, they will prioritize it.
Mm-hmm.
In their mind, they would say, is it worth $2 million? Is it worth $500,000? Is it worth $20 million? I'll tell you a story. The reason why I do that, there's a story behind it. Long time ago, we were doing from stores, and I'll not name any company. We've got data in the stores, and the data in the stores would come overnight.
In batch,
the mainframes, and then it will get fetched in, and I'll get it in the morning, and we will create a report. And every Monday morning, believe me or not, every business has a C-level meeting where the board meeting where they discuss, what we're going to do that week.
Yeah.
So that whole process would run till 5 in the morning, and the report will come around about 7 in the morning, which was touch and go. To the
just to jump in a second. Or sometimes I've experienced where it keeps running, and then 11 o'clock in the morning they're going, guys, it's still running.
Absolutely. So what happened was one great company, again, I don't want to name them, they came to us and said, we can do trickle feed, which means that instead of doing a bulk download overnight, we will do it during the day after every 6 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever it is. So it'll be trickle feeding into the system. So by 2 o'clock in the morning, you will have all the data in there. Brilliant idea. Now, coming back, the problem was that by 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes you were not getting the reports, and the GMs and the business managers, senior business managers were meeting up, and they didn't have a report to take a decision. So it was problematic for sure. That company came in with that idea, so we had a solution. We had a problem, we had a solution. Now comes the question, how much? So these guys said, well, we can do it, no problems. We will change it. And you know how much? $20 million. And you know the business said, oh, we can live with it.
They said what, sorry?
We can live with it. Don't worry. We don't need it.
Oh, it's not a big enough pain.
It's not worth it. $20 million. It's not worth $20 million. So that day I thought, every time there's a business pain, which is perceived to be a business pain, unless you put a lot of value to it, you will, and no one whined about it thereafter. No one said anything thereafter. Once they saw $20 million on the table, as in they will have to spend, no questions asked. It was good. Report coming at even 11 o'clock, no problems.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're trying to get the functional execs to basically get their head around how much skin in the game they're going to put into changing something, or can they live with it?
So their mind starts prioritizing it. It is important enough. I said that it's a big problem and it's keeping me awake, but is it worth how much? Because I can solve it. I will have a magic wand, and tomorrow morning you will have it solved for $20 million. Are you willing to pay that? No, I'm not. Thank you very much. No discussions. Very, very important. So you need to think about that, and that's how it changes the world. That's how it changes the way business does business, and that's how you make it happen. So that is an important thing. So as I said, there is a thread to it, but that thread is data. You need to understand how to solve the problem using data. Whether it will require a statistical model, I don't know. Whether it will be just a report, I don't know. Whether it will be something that I'm going to predict, or whether I'm going to peel the onion, I don't know. But that's where it starts.
And yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've been just recently working on, collaborating on is there's some stuff that you probably know, Professor Galloway, Scott Galloway, yeah, the 4, yeah, the algebra of happiness. So he's got a new company called Section 4, and I've just been on a platform sprint with one of his colleagues, Mohan, who is at Kellogg's business school in the US. And the interesting thing is that the really interesting statistic that 20 years ago, I think it's 20 years ago, that all the top companies in the world were all oil companies, energy companies, oil companies, and now they're all platform companies. You know, so it shows the stats, and the market cap of the the energy companies is like this big, and the market cap of the platform companies is this big. So he was talking about how to create a platform company, and one of the most amazing stats for me, which because I've spent a couple of decades in telecoms, mobile, was that Reliance Jio, which you probably know, Reliance Industries in India. I mean, absolute masterclass. He's been one of the guys who's been on the board of Reliance Jio for the last 5 years, and they have absolutely massively disrupted the Indian market for mobile and platform strategy. I don't know if you've been watching that, but they acquired, I think it was 100 million customers in 175 days. It's absolutely staggering.
I'll tell you what. So when this happened, because I come from telecom background, my first job was with SR Cell Phone, which was telco. So when that was happening, I think it was 2013, 2015, 2016. I actually have a blog on that. I wrote an article. So when I start, that was 1996 when I was working in telco in India. So all of those guys are now senior folks. Years later, they're all senior, but they're all in telco. So they're still doing what they were doing then, and they're senior folks. So I started getting phone calls saying, why is Reliance giving it away for free? Because they did that. Shelly, what are they thinking? And I promised them, I said, this is called Uberization of telco. That's what I named it. And there is an article on my blog, Cognitive Today, which is called Uberization of Telco. I said, what they're going to do is they're going to make they're going to change telco from B2C to B2B. It's a shift. They're not going to charge the consumer anything. They will only charge, they will use the data, create value out of that, and sell it to businesses. And they will make shitload of money from that, then charging 10 cents or 20 cents from per call from a customer.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things on that, I think I agree with you. I mean, I think they just completely disrupted the market, but they also built some interesting capabilities. They built a data network, but then they also the price reduction was 92% from the current market price for 3 months. And then, then it actually went to 0 for 3 months. And then they thought they were going to lose all the customers. And all the analysts thought they were going to lose all the customers. And they actually had a 72% retention rate after 3 months because they had a 92% reduction from the market price. And then the power of that. I mean, the other astounding statistic, which it's a masterstroke, is literally, no, it wasn't Apple. Google and Facebook have each given them $5 billion to play with them in that market. So obviously WhatsApp, etc. Facebook's giving them $5 billion to just have a JV with them in that market. It's just like, so. And then I spoke to some guys at another telco, remain nameless, and they've obviously been watching what's been happening with Reliance Jio, and obviously they're now trying to look at how they evolve to be a platform play, not to be a telco, because obviously seeing that, actually selling with other solutions as using the brand of their organization, and actually building solutions to problems for customers, B2B customers and B2C customers is the way forward for the telco. So. Being in Telefonica a few years ago, they had a data division called Telefonica Dynamic Insights, which was quite interesting as well. They were trying to do that same route. So it's interesting how these lines are being kind of eroded. Yeah, what was a telco before, what was a bank? It's all been evolved and redefined. The boundaries have been redefined.
Absolutely. So that is what is happening. I must tell you one thing. In the whole world, you will be able to call anywhere for free in next 4 years' time. Well, you can already call free on data, but normal calls. I remember when I came to Australia, calling to India was so expensive.
Like $5 a minute or something.
Something like that. And then the calling cards came into play, and they were $10 and 90 minutes or something like that. And then those calling cards became $10 for 300 minutes or something like that. And then they gave it up and they said, calling card, unlimited calls. You can call for unlimited times to India. And now I have got a plan where I can call India for free. But what I'm saying is, but it's not, they've got 26 countries. What is going to happen is telcos will be asking you to be with them for free in 4 years' time. I promise.
Or less.
Well,
I mean, Mohan from Section 4, who is a very, very interesting professor. He said that literally, he believes that Reliance Jio is going to be one of the most powerful companies in the world because obviously they've got over 1 billion people on their doorstep, and the other market is probably something like Nigeria. You see, if you think of what's going on in Nigeria with the explosion of not just Guinness drinking, but the population explosion in Nigeria, and also the kind of economic growth that's happening in Nigeria. So I was seeing some people in Nigeria the other day, and that's a staggering thing about how it's driving the GDP of the whole of Africa. It's quite amazing. So there's this whole kind of shift of things happening, I think, which is really good to see. I'm not saying Western markets have had their day, but it's obviously it's this balance, where it's not being so Western centric, but actually getting a balance into the other regions as well.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing. What the thing that people are missing is, and I've been saying that for last few years, a telco as big as Reliance, a telco as big as Telstra, a telco as big as BT, a telco as big as you name it. Someone which is big can actually even define the security of that country.
They can do what, sorry?
It can define, it can protect the country. It can help in security. It can help in banking. It can do so many things. The products are unlimited. Because when I'm having a phone and I am traveling from one place to another, everything is being logged.
Yes.
You know where I go, what store I go. You're following me. You can use that information and a bit of AI, the term AI, or statistical modeling, and actually can make a huge difference to the organization. They are sitting on a gold mine, and if I say, if they want to spend a mere 10-20 million dollars, that can boomerang to 20 to 30 trillion dollars for the telco. But the problem is that the leadership at that level are telcos, are telco-based people. They don't understand what they can do with data, and they're only driven by the CIOs and the CTOs who are very, very infrastructure, and they're moving the infrastructure and so forth. And that is the problem. I think I've got two comments, and I'll read them. One is, if telcos are going to be inviting customers to make free calls globally, as you alluded to, in your view, how in your view they will generate revenue if they ditch the MGs and MINs model? Okay, that's Ishmael from Africa. Ishmael,
Okay.
I just answered that question. If the telco, because the data they're sitting on, they could create products, and those products could move from B2C to B2B. They will be selling your product to businesses. For example, how cool will be for a retailer to know when I am crossing that store and sending me a message? It's a hot lead to get inside and buy something. And even if they know that
let me just tell you a funny story. So one of my very good friends, Philip Robbins-Jones, who was a CIO at Tesco, literally when we launched Tesco Mobile back in 2003, which is a few years ago, we literally walked around the store. We walked around one of the Tesco stores, and we talked about the blue sky experience, about combining the mobile device and the experience, and actually what the shopping trip would be like, which is exactly what that route you were going down was about. That it knows that you're actually from the cell, that you're actually near the store. You've gone into the store. You're actually on the aisle. You can then link it to the promotion on the shop floor, on the shelf. Yeah. You can then promote actually maybe a video on the wall to actually, to trigger your purchase, and a special offer, and even personalize it down to, hi, Andrew, we know you bought that particular broccoli or whatever last time. And now we've got a special offer on it. It's a buy one, get one free or whatever. So that's kind of, just to jump in there, but that literally was a real life conversation I had in Tesco 18 years ago. So
to add to that, Ishmael, I'll tell you, go read my book, Making Money Out of Data. Sorry, I'm blatantly promoting it. It has got two of those stories which actually answer your question which you've asked. Well, I've partly answered that question, but it is in there as well, because that's how it actually became because we've done a bit of that as well. So think about these things, that the kind of data that these guys are sitting on. I also created a kind of a architecture where 3 or 4 different organizations in a country can make a huge difference to the lives of the people if they come together and share their information. I think if that happens, which you rightly said, Tesco with Tesco Mobile, Tesco Money, or Tesco Retail,
Tesco Bank,
all coming together, which we did when we were doing it at Everyday for Everyday Brand. everyday rewards, everyday money, everyday mobile, everyday
Mm.
insurance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which we just parallel to our own thinking, right? Exactly, that could make a huge difference. And one more thing, sorry, I forgot to talk about the nappies in the beer story. Andrew, do you want to tell guys what it was? For the younger generation.
No. Keep going. I can't talk about Walmart. I'm not allowed.
Okay, so guys, what happened was, or what I usually tell people is that why data mining became popular in those days was because of the nappies and the beer story. And the story went like that: the people who would buy nappies would also buy beer, or people who buy beer also buy nappies. Now, that was a simple association analysis which could do on a transaction at a transaction base, or you could do it at a customer base as well. So there are two different levels of doing it, understanding what you're trying to achieve. And when that analysis was done, that was figured out. And then so that's an analysis which simply says that people who buy nappies also buy beer. The problem was to actually communicate it to the business and tell them that this is happening. And business does not believe in data. In those days, they didn't. They believed in stories. So people had to cook stories around that. So the story was, oh, it's the male ego. When a man picks up a nappy, it looks very weird. So they pick up a beer. So they say to themselves, they're telling them that, oh, I have not come here to buy nappies. I've come here to buy beer. And oh, I'm here, so I'm buying nappies too. And there were so many stories that went around. But what it did was it made data mining so popular that everyone was talking about data mining. And to extend that story, when big data came into play, I told people big data is not going to be the next big thing unless they create some stories like the nappy and beer story, or something that people can talk about, which will make big data the next thing. But that didn't come because there was no business context. It was just velocity, veracity, variety, and value of data. Value was not even there. Value was what I started.
I was going to ask you, there's all these buzzwords in this kind of area. So what's your definition of big data? What does that actually mean?
Well, I don't have a value definition of big data, to be honest. There is no definition. The reason why, I'll tell you an interesting story. I've got a few stories. There was a guy who came. I did a project for a large organization. I'll not say the name, and it was generating around about $150 million annually without spending any extra dollars. In fact, reducing their spend, which was huge. So, in my organization, where I was at the time, one guy came to me and he said, "Shelly, you're doing some big data analytics." I said, "Am I?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, you're making that much of money for that large organization. This should be, we're collating use cases and we're writing a white paper and we should mention this." I said, "What are you going to mention?" He said, "I'm going to mention that this is a big data story. It's a big data use case." I said, "Define to me what is big data, like you asked me." And he said, "Big data." I said, "So," he defined, and I said, "Okay, cut it short. There are three pillars of big data. Before, volume, variety, veracity, and velocity of data. If you've got all of that and you could hold that, then possibly it's a big data story." And I'll tell you something. The project that we've done, which you're calling a big data project, has 3 years of weekly data. So how many weeks in a year? 52. Multiplied by 3, 156. That many rows. So volume is not there. Good. It beats your first logic of big data goes away. The second logic is variety. I've got only 5 sources of data. There's not much variety in it. Velocity, because it is weekly data, we only extract it once in 6 months. So there is not even velocity in there. Tell me, how is this big data? So his answer was, but you're making $100 million for them. I said, that doesn't qualify. So the problem is that people are, and we used to do that in data warehousing days as well, because I was playing with in my retail days, I was playing with 20 million rows transaction a week multiplied by 10 line items, 200 million rows a week multiplied by 52 multiplied by 3 years. You're looking at a few trillion rows, and we used to play with it on daily basis, and that was data warehousing. So we could turn the name to big data now. But that's,
so do you think that? So what you're saying is, if you had a very significant measure on each of those 4 dimensions, then you think it would be more closer to a big data definition. Otherwise, it's not. It's just data. It's just because if you've got low, high.
Absolutely. And to that, there is another issue which is about people's understanding of structured and unstructured and structured and unstructured data. And
you stole my thunder. That's what I was just going to ask you about.
No, the reality is that people do not understand these things, and that's a problem. And I get appalled when really senior evangelists walk onto the stage and talk about this, having no idea about it. And then I say, well, oh yeah, this guy is still talking about things he doesn't know. So if I was to ask you what is an unstructured data, well, of course, structured data, everyone knows it's like RDBMSs and the sum and the data that has got some structure to it. What is unstructured data? If I asked you that, what would you say?
Me? I'm supposed to be the host. I'm supposed to be the host. I'm supposed to ask the questions.
Well, I'm
I mean, an unstructured. I don't know, an unstructured document. Well, I suppose like a document. It's like a document, isn't it? If you had an invoice, would you say that's an unstructured document? I don't know. That's a simple example, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a simple example. So unstructured data is something that does not have any structure. For example, video. If you ingest video data, there is no structure to it. Audio, there is no structure to it. Invoice, if you've standardized it, there
so it's I suppose it's the thing about, is it structured or semi-structured? Is an invoice semi-structured?
So invoices, if you've defined a particular structure to it at the beginning for that organization, that I will have invoices like this only, then it is semi-structured. But if you're scanning the invoice as a picture, then it is unstructured.
Yeah.
Similarly,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Similarly, people think Twitter data is unstructured. No, Twitter data has structure. It's a JSON file which has got a structure to it, and it has got all the things to it. So it's very, very structured. Facebook data is very structured. Not very structured, it's semi-structured, because it's got free-flowing text as well. So there is structured data, there is unstructured data, and there is semi-structured data. And you need to understand the importance of all 3 of those and the way it is stored and the way it is used as we go forward. The problem is people club semi-structured and unstructured data into one, and they try to treat it in that fashion, which is incorrect.
And do you find, I presume, that a lot of the maturity of companies as well, they mainly focus on structured data, or I presume it's like a journey of maturity, isn't it, I suppose, when you actually get to a point where you can have unstructured, structured, and semi-structured?
Well, there are 2 things. One is, of course, you asked me for the maturity of people, of organizations. Actually, people are not even getting right or real value out of the structured data itself. They're not at the moment, because they don't know what to do with it. So there is whole plethora of structured data that can make a lot of sense. Like I said with the telco, there's so much of structured information that they've got. They could change the world. But when there is, but then someone will come and tell them, have you seen these social media information? You should use it. There is a lot of unstructured data that you should be using. You're not generating, you're not monetizing it. Hang on a minute, you haven't even monetized your structured data. And then people start running on the other direction.
You see what you're raising there, I think, is this piece around the, if you're thinking about the making big bets and board decisions versus what's the evidence behind that underpins that decision, then what is the mix of information and data you need to have to it's that decision science. It's that kind of, how do you underpin the decision, and what is the mix of structured, semi-structured, unstructured data you need to pull in together. And I suppose that's where probably you see this gap, where organizations are still got some gaps in that capability to actually truly have, that classic phrase that we use for many years, a real-time enterprise. This kind of nirvana. When they get there, it's going to be like we're going to have AR, VR headsets on, but people are not quite there yet, are they? Apart from Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, real-time, tickles me all the time, because I was asking someone this long time ago, I think 6-7 years ago, where they said, "Oh, we're going to have real-time data. What will you do with it? You can't take a decision on data which was 1 month ago, and you want to have real-time information now. What will you do with it? Tell me." I give you, because see, you can only take a decision on something. So, for example, you're not playing a cricket match, right? Where you have to take a decision on the fly. By the time you think about it and you've taken a decision and you want to validate it with 5 people in the organization, if the data changes, what was the value of doing that piece of work?
Yeah. Well, it's whether you equip the organization to respond to that information, that fire hose of information that you're making available. Otherwise, to your point a bit earlier, where you were saying about, well, it's not worth investing in that capability because it's not going to be used. You're not going to get the payback on it. You're not going to benefit, are you?
Absolutely. So even if you get real-time information, the question you should ask is, it's like, I tell this to all the people all the time. It's so nice for you to think about those niceties, saying, I want to have, well, it's the example I give here is this. When you start dating a girl, you tell them, I'll get you the moon. Have you heard of those stories when you were young?
No, I never did that. And I never did that. No.
The question I ask is, realistically, I get you the moon, where will you park it? I will get you the moon. Tell me, where will you park it? Have you got enough big a backyard to park the moon? So think about that.
Anyway, the moon's not enough anyway. We've got to go to Mars now, because Elon wants us all to go to Mars.
Oh yeah, we'll get you the Mars then. Or we'll park the moon on the Mars, right?
Exactly. Yeah, just in the corner.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I went on a session with Facebook the other week, and they've got a new Oculus headset called Quest 2.
Quest 2.
So Quest 2. So apparently that's the one we've got to get. Maybe the next live stream we can have our Oculus Quest 2s on. We could do it in an AR, VR. We could do it within a game. We could do like a Second Life or Third Life. Any more questions from our lovely audience?
Let me see if I can see something. Actually, you should be, because you're not gone live on LinkedIn, you will later, but it should, my messages are not coming to your feed. Otherwise, they should be appearing here, but they're not. That's good. So there was another message. Okay. From Ishmael itself, and Ishmael says, when you look at an organization trying to reimage their technology digital strategy, who in your view should be driving the strategy, integrations, data, talent, and tech? Good question. Who should be driving that? I think it is a collective discussion, and you will have your CTO and the chief digital officer or the chief strategy officer who should be driving that, in my view, Ishmael, if that makes sense. So it's the chief strategy officer in the organization who should be driving that. He's not the executor, he's the strategist. He's driving the strategy. He should own the strategy, and he should own the roadmaps. He should own everything that is going to be executed, and he should get those roadmaps from the CAO, from the CDO, from the CIO, and I don't even know whether these guys still have roadmaps, because that is what. And I remember.
You just have a sprint. You just have a sprint plan for a week, don't they? That's the whole business plan, isn't it? So you can be like a speedboat. You can like change. You can change direction at a week's notice because you've got that real-time enterprise.
Yeah, but you need to have a high. I get that, but you need to have a high-level milestone.
Strat plan.
Yeah. So everyone is organized. It's not that. So I tell you why, because I used to have three roadmaps. Actually, remember, four. One was the IT roadmap, then was the data roadmap, then was the analytics roadmap, and then was the customer roadmap. And these four roadmaps, and the reason I had them was because each one of the item on each roadmap will have an implication on the other one, and the other one, and the other one. So, for example, if I was introducing, let's take that. If I was introducing mobile phones to the business, then that data for the mobile phone. So the first thing is, when will the mobile phones arrive? So that's the technology roadmap would say that. Then when they arrive, when the data feed from the mobile app is going to come into my. So when I have the data, I will be able to do some analysis and to build some models. When that model will be built. And then when that model will be built, I will make some decisions, and those decisions will impact the customers. So there would be
it's like the value chain. It's like the value chain.
It's the value chain, and there is an impact on each roadmap on the other. The problem is people do not have those four handy, and they don't align with each other. And so something happens somewhere, and then there is an impact elsewhere. And that is where the chief strategy officer needs to get all those roadmaps and align them, because if you don't align them, the chances are that you will be struggling, and that happens all the time.
So one of the things I was going to ask you, about you, about just switch the conversation to something about you personally, was because my observation with yourself is obviously like me, you've worked in big organizations, big industry, and you've also worked in consulting, and you've also worked in big software, you could call it, or big platforms. So given all this sexiness around startups and stuff, do you fancy working in a startup at some point? Does that take your fancy?
I don't know. That's a very very good question, but I don't know. I really don't know about startups, because I think it's a different challenge. To be honest, sorry, I'm lying. I don't know, because I think all the organizations I've worked with, whether that was Woolies, whether it was Accenture, whether it was IBM, I did something which was very niche.
Right.
So it was only me who was doing it, but I had a backing of a large $1 billion company. So I used to call myself a startup in a $1 billion company.
So you're like an entrepreneur residence kind of thing.
Yeah. So that was coming, but there was a peace of mind that I'm not going to be, looking for funds every day. I'm not going to be worried about, it's not a hand-to-mouth situation. I know that everything is fine. I'll be safe as long as I deliver what I'm promising to.
That's why I'm asking the question, because I've had the benefit of being in corporates. I've then worked on startups in corporates, and I've actually been in startups as well. I've been a founder, and I've been a co-founder of startups, so in Silicon Valley as well as obviously internationally. And I think that was my bit of my challenge to you, Shailendra, is you should experience that at some point in your future, because I think you're very well equipped for it, but it might also be an interesting experience for you. That's all.
I don't have
just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
No, that's fine. It's just that I have the experience, but I'm a safe player. I go and play a match I can win. So I think that's why I have been I've constructed myself in that position where I can play in a startup environment, but safely, that I'm not worried about the fact that I have to go fetch for money. There's no money for the people to get the salaries and all that stuff, which is one thing which I'm very scared of.
You should read this book.
What is it called? Play Bigger. Okay.
It's a really good book. Really good book.
We're talking about
highly recommended. I know you're going to beat me on the book.
No,
or you're going to get your own book out now. You're going to get your own book out.
You should read this book.
You can't promote your own book on this episode. That's cheeky. No, I'm joking. No, hold it up. So what's the book about then? Tell me what the book's about.
Oh no, it's called Making Money Out of Data. It's got 5 stories: telco, retail, CPG, then insurance and credit card, and how they use data to make money. And apart from that, an important thing for the book is that it's got some. It's my experience, right? That's what I've done in life, and how these organizations, I have made money for these organizations. But some of them are quotes which I've written over the years. Like there's one here: "Nothing succeeds like success," and that happened because I was in I was working for this retail, and no one wanted us. And so I went to my boss and said, "Why did you hire me? It looks like no one wanted me." And no one wants to use data. And these were good old days. And he said to me, "Nothing succeeds like success. You get the first success story, and everyone will be walking behind you." And he was right. Quote unquote, Richard Humbles. Nothing succeeds like success. Then there is one which this is mine. It says, there are things we don't know, and there are things we know we don't know. So there are two kinds of things: things we know, we don't know. I know that I don't know anything about cooking or possibly something else. I know I don't know. But there are things I don't know that I don't know. And I am in the business of finding out those things that I don't know. And that's why what I do is what I find out, and that's where the challenge is.
So you like a detective? That's what you're saying. You like a detective.
That's what a data. That's what a data.
You like the Indian Australian Inspector Clouseau or Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes
using data.
So when did that book come out? When did that book come out?
In 2017.
Okay. Sounds like you need another one coming out now. You're a bit overdue.
Yeah, everybody's asking when the next coming in, but I haven't done something great in the last 4 or 5 years, which I can talk about or write about. So I don't know. It'll have to wait.
Well, you see, my plan is to get my first book out this year. You see, so I'm working on it right now. So plan is there's obviously a few months left. Never say never.
Another parallel thing going on there. Another mirror.
Yeah, exactly. It's under wraps. It's under wraps. Well, it's interesting when you talk about book ideas. You actually come up with like lots of book ideas. So I've got 5 book ideas. So maybe I just got to get the first one out first. It's only taken a few decades. So
and you will definitely. Good stuff.
So in terms of, I suppose to wrap up today's session, I suppose one of the things that I do ask on usually the G&T Sessions podcast, which obviously this is the new version now. You've kicked me into doing live streams now. You see, so which is a good thing. Always be pushing forward. So one of the things I talk about is about a couple of things. I suppose what are you most excited about in terms of the future?
Well,
or what are you most excited about generally?
Well, I say to people that we are in current environment not because of COVID, but in current technological environment, we are at a place where we are seeing the future changing. And we individuals are so blessed to be at this stage that we can shape the future the way we want to. And it is so exciting. There are so many things that we can do with the technology today. And I say that because I couldn't do that 10, 20 years ago, not because of any limitation of mine, but because the technology wasn't there, because the speed of doing things wasn't there. But today it is there. And I take that example. I built my first computer, which was a 486, 4 MB RAM, and 256 MB of hard drive. My phone is 12 GB of RAM and ridiculously 1 terabyte of data on storage on it, and which is what 100 times smaller than the computer that I had at the time. And so look at the speed and the kind of data that we are collecting. It is just about how we use this data effectively and solve not only corporate problems but social problems as well. And I said that so many times. When COVID started, people didn't listen to me. I thought that COVID was we would control it if we wanted to. Technology was there, data was there. It just needed people to come together and do it. It would have taken not much time, but we didn't. We let it go.
And why did that not happen then, do you think?
Because A, people don't know how to do it, what they can do with it, and B, there was no will.
There was no what, sorry?
There was no will. At a very large will to do it.
Oh, no will. Okay. Interesting. So how it sounds like there's a social issue there then. There's no will.
Yeah.
There wasn't a big enough will to collaborate. Is that what you're thinking? Or?
Absolutely. If people could collaborate and work together, I think there could be lots that could have been done, and we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't be there. We would have gone through it.
Well, I mean, given some of the stuff that's come out of the World Economic Forum and some other stuff that's obviously been quite a lot of dialogue about this is, the post. Well, I don't know if will there be a post-pandemic world. Hopefully, we don't go for 5 years like the Roman Emperor Mox Aurelius did. But I suppose that what do we learn from this? Because it's been kind of a bit of a reset, hasn't it? So what happens next?
What happens next? People are going to use data to their advantage, whether at corporate level or at individual level, and it will make a huge difference. It'll be a slow run. It is a slow run at the moment, but it will make a huge difference. I tell you. I have been chasing so many people that we can solve so many problems socially or not, corporate wise, very, very quickly, and benefit the mankind in value. The value word can be anything, could be monetary or non-monetary or health or whatever. But I will get through people at some point in time, and I think we will be able to make a change. I tell you one more thing. Someone told me a long time ago, one of my ex-bosses, who was my boss for 2 days, he said to me, "Shelly, I'm not here to change the world," which is a good corporate term. People, when large corporates say that, "I'm not here to change the world. I just want to run this part of the business." And I said to him, "If you're not here to change the world, I don't want to work with you."
I thought you might say that.
And I didn't.
Okay.
Anyways.
And what happened to him then? Did he leave or did you leave?
I left. He's still there. Because you'll always have those people who will be there for the rest of their lives.
Doesn't want to rock the boat.
They're only there to solve that problem. For them, solving world problems is not important. For me, it is.
So as a spirit of that was, what are you most grateful for?
What am I most grateful for? For the second life that I'm living. So I would have died in 1997. I am on what they say, on a borrowed life, or I'm living. I'm living something that I'm not supposed to. I would have died
What?
1997.
Why? What happened?
Uh, Not on a live show, but yeah, let's keep it to that. So I'm grateful to someone who blessed me to do something which. So I need to change the world before I go, because I'm living on a borrowed life.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
I haven't shared it on a live show, so
No, it's okay. It's okay. No worries. No worries. So
okay.
in terms of wrapping up this amazingly interactive session, in terms of obviously we both been through interesting journeys. From your point of view, what would you like to share as takeaways? I mean, if you were trying to give some guidance back to people that maybe watching this episode either live today or maybe watch the kind of recording in the future, what are your pearls of wisdom? What are your kind of your guidance that you give to somebody about something to think about if they're on their journey, but maybe not where you are today?
Well, I think there is a lot that can be done in the data space, and I'll keep it to data. I'll not formalize it to something more than that. And
Well, it can be
um,
personal. It can be personal. It can be personal as well. It can be
yeah,
personal as well.
if you, so for people, if you need help, guys, I'm just a phone call away, and my phone is publicly available, by the way, which not many people do. I do keep it publicly available, which has pluses and minuses, but I'm fine with that. Yeah, pick up the phone, give me a call. If you can't, you're connected to me on LinkedIn, put it on a LinkedIn post. If you can't, you can tweet me. But if you've got a problem, if you want help in anything to do with data, or no, I won't go beyond data, from data to machine learning or AI. No, data, give me a call, and I'm more than happy to help. But having said that, I say there is a responsibility of each and every individual today to actually respond back to the society and do something that can make a huge difference, and we all can. And my point of view here is that with the data that has been created, we can solve, I won't say 90% of the world problems, but we can solve fairly big chunk of world problems that can be solved using data, as long as there is a will. And if you've got the will, yeah, pick up the phone, give me a call, and I'll help you. And the first thing you'll have to do is write that problem on the wall.
If you've got a will, then we're going to find a way, so to speak.
Well, as my dad used to say, if there is a will, there is always a way.
Exactly.
And it's only the will that is missing for people. But if there will be, if you're interested, if you want to do something in data space, you want to become a data scientist, you want to become an AI expert, data scientist, right? That term didn't exist 4 years ago. Sorry. Again, another buzzword. If you want to, give me a call. I can help, and I'm always on the other side of the phone. I never shy away from giving advice. Any advice, happy to give.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. So that's a very good offer to the people that are listening to this live stream, and also people that are going to watch this recording. And given it's now 10:30 at night in Sydney, I'm sure your wife is going to be complaining. So I was going to say, thank you very much for coming on the show today, which was the first live stream of the G&T Sessions. So thank you, Shailendra, for facilitating and encouraging me to do it. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
If people want to get hold of you, then is there a particular website they should check? Are you saying, maybe you can explain how to get hold of it?
Wherever you see watching this episode, guys, if you try to find me by my name, you will find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere.
Okay.
And just put a comment or send me a message. I'm an as they say, open networker, or what is it, LinkedIn open networkers. Lion, as they say, LION. It
All
used
right.
to
Yeah.
be, yeah, it used to be LinkedIn open networker.
He's a lion.
So please feel free to contact me, or otherwise, if you go to LinkedIn, you'll find my phone number as well. So you just pick up the phone, give me a call. More than happy to help. And by the way, this live stream, Andrew's live stream, has gone onto 6 properties this time.
Okay.
2 of Andrew's properties and 4 of mine. So it's gone live on Twitter on Andrew's and Facebook, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone live on my LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So 6 properties.
Wow.
So guys, it's everywhere. And if you want to share it with your friends and colleagues, if they can learn something out of it, I'm happy. If they can't, pick up the phone, give me a call. I'm happy.
Who are you going to call? Call Sydney. Call Shailendra instead of Sydney. Okay, great. So thank you very much for your time. And that was Shailendra Kumar, who's the chief evangelist of SAP and all-round data guru. And that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Thank you very much for your time. Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.